I Wish Actors Knew, Costumes Edition. Hey everyone, I'm Matthew Cornwell with Get Taped here in Atlanta, Georgia, one of Atlanta's original audition taping services, which I co-own with my amazingly talented, beautiful wife and best friend, Brooke. This video is part of our interview series titled I Wish Actors Knew, and this week we're talking about costumes. For this video, I was so thankful to sit down with Miracole Burns, a friend of mine and one of the most talented costumers in this industry. I am a little biased, of course. One of the first times I got to work with Miracole was on a web series called Avengers Assemble, where I played a hilarious version of Thor. It was a parody web series that was quite honestly ahead of this time. And if you check the show notes below, I'll link this particular video where we actually were able to get Stan Lee himself to play a future version of Tony Stark. Be sure to check it out. But in addition to being a cosplayer, Miracole has worked in the costumes department on many a project, from period pieces to doing super suits, from zero-budget indie projects to $150 million budget movies. She has done it all, which made her the perfect person to interview for this series. So without further ado, let's get to the interview. Thank you, Miracole, for being here. It's a pleasure to have you here, and it's been a pleasure to know you for as long as I've known you, which is well over a decade at this point. I'm not even sure when we would have first met.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I've been in the industry for, I had to math this morning and it hurt the brain cells, 15 years.
Wow. With that much experience in the industry, it's one of the main reasons, also because I know you, why I wanted to interview you about this. So we're going to kind of take you through the start to finish experience of an actor as they relate to costumes, and just highlight the things that are either red flags to watch out for as an actor, to be careful of certain types of behaviors or ways of interacting, or on the flip side, the things actors can do to make your job easier. As an actor, what is the first time you interact with them that is of any sort of importance from that actor's perspective?
Sure. Once you are booked on a part, a supervisor from my department would typically call you. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's a key, and we'll call to get your sizes. Because typically we either have to shop, fabricate, or rent the costume choices that are selections for you. So we'll give you a call, and basically we ask for your sizes. So this is where it's super important to know your vehicle, because if you don't know your sizes and you give us an incorrect size, we're going to shop all of that. We're going to shop all of that in that size that you gave us. And then by the time you come and you meet with the designer or the assistant designer and you come for your fittings and nothing fits, we recommend definitely measuring yourself and not just knowing I'm a 6 or an 8 or a 10 or I wear 32, 32, 34, 32. Know your natural waist. Know your hips. Know your hips with your tuchus, or full. Know how tall you are. And I doubt that's changed, but still, just in case, because the inches tell us a lot more than I wear a size 8 or I wear a medium shirt, because not everything comes in small, medium, and large, and not, medium in one brand will not be a medium in another. So know your vehicle. Know just basic stuff, your neck, your chest, your waist, your hips. That for us, unless it's a super suit thing or something super, super specific, where we'll bring you in and we'll do your measurements. And if that happens, which I know we've measured you on occasion for something very specific, ask to take a photo of the form and then save it. And then you have that. So when you are cast, you can be like, hey, can I send you my most current form? That for us is gold, because I can then send out a shopper or somebody to pull for a rental house, or I can start work on the basis of something that's custom. So by the time you do come in, we throw it on you, and then we can tweak and go from there and start to make more selections of what will work for your character.
I mean, measuring tape is very cheap, and you can find specific, if you wanted to do it on your own, you can easily Google the appropriate place to measure certain things. And so there's really not an excuse for an actor to not know those basic sizes. Okay, I wanted to give one extra reason for being truthful about your sizes. You know how on your driver's license you have your goal weight as opposed to your actual weight? No, that's just me. Well, anyway, even if you think you're going to be 5 pounds lighter by your first shoot day, do not lie. First of all, it can just drive the costumes department crazy if you give them one set of sizes over the phone and then you show up at your fitting and you're clearly not that. But also, if you're truthful, then when they fit you with clothing that is perfectly tailored to your size right now, you'll look slimmer. Trust me, a perfectly fitted costume will look better than the size you want to fit into. It's science! So know your sizes and give them truthfully and willingly to the costumes department. I'll say that, I have very thick thighs, so please stay away from slim cuts unless there's a lot of elastic in it, just to try to give even more information, because as styles change and my style doesn't change, and so I'm wearing the same pants I've been wearing for 15 years, I think it's important for actors to also know sort of what the trends are, or have a certain idea of what is probably going to be used in the piece. Getting back to what
you personally have to do, yourself, right? You know that you've got quads. Any supervisor, any key worth their salt, knowing that what they're going to clothe you in or at least what the designer wants to clothe you in, will then go, hey, is there anything that we need to know about you? Because we ask about tattoos, we ask about piercings, we ask about allergies, or if you're vegan, that is the time to tell me all of those things. So if we need to put you in long sleeves because you don't have clearances on your tattoos, which then becomes makeup's problem, and then we fight enough. I don't want to make it worse. That's the time to bring up those things, because if you're vegan and you don't want to wear leather things, that's 100% cool. We just need to know before we bring you in, and, we've got leather shoes and leather belts and a leather trench coat, or, whatever works for your character. We can work around that. It's just to give us the heads up for sure. So the same thing with if you're athletic built, meaning I've got like our friend Femi, tiny waist, gigantic chest. He's hard to fit, and he typically is cast in like those more nerdy or accountant type personalities. They are problematic to make them not look buff, because they are ingenuine. Like, this has one look, and then from here down is something completely separate. And if you don't dress them accordingly, they're going to look like a buff accountant, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if it's a period piece from the 40s, you don't want that. So it's anything that is specific to your vehicle that would be something good for us to know. Just bring it up then, because you'll be our hero when we go to fit you, and it just makes it all easier. Great. If it is more specialty period, would you want an actor to be proactive about saying, by the way, I have a tweed suit that is already fitted for me? Would that be something that you'd be interested in having them bring to set with them? Or is it generally that you want that autonomy over the costumes? It 100% depends on the vehicle. If it is something that's independent, or sure, volunteer that. But I personally think, being obviously married to an actor and having friends who are actors, like, that's your personal things. And I don't want to take the chance that, sure, we book it and then it gets ruined, or we rip the tuchus out, or we damage the garment. It's, unless it's asked for, or it's something where they just don't have the budget, typically we want to have the ability to make multiples out of things. Or so if we had a beautiful vintage suit that you bring in, trying to molt something potentially because it has to go in a stunt guy, or we've got to set you on fire and roll you down a hill. I don't want to do that in your own clothes, even with a pay bump, which you should, by the way, have. But beyond that, for the big things, for the shows, they have a budget. Let them spend their money. They know what they want. And if they do fall in love with that suit, sure, then lend it to the designer so they can make multiples of it and then get your suit back. Yeah, that's such a great point. I also have been on set where, usually on those smaller sets, but you're being mic'd up and
suddenly the whoever's doing this says, is this yours or is this costumes? Because I need to cut a hole in the pocket here, or in the pocket in the pants. And certainly if it's mine, at that moment I'm going, it's mine actually. And that's where they go, crap, because now they have an impasse of what they can or can't do to modify that costume.
And it's one of those situations, too, depending on what it is. You could be sitting at a desk in your nice vintage suit, but they're still writing things that are happening in the future. We don't know. Sometimes we've been thrown curveballs where we have had somebody it was their personal thing, and time stops, and then they go on this adventure, or something happens, a wormhole. I don't know. It's so weird. Writers, man. And then you're like, crap, he doesn't fit the suit anymore. It's their personal. And then now you're scrambling to try to find fabric that's the same. You're trying to churn 3 out and 2 for a stunt guy. How do we match the buttons? It's nice as a thought, but in the end, I think it ends up creating too much potential chaos. Not always. Sometimes you get lucky and it's perfect and it's great and you only needed the one and, you wore a bib at lunch. But yeah, 9 times out of 10, just let them do it, dude. Yeah. Just let them do it.
And then that makes me think of even reshoots and just you wanting to have that costume, because I'm sure you've been asked before, hey, can I buy this piece off of you at the end? And maybe in a commercial that can be done to sell that costume piece to that actor. But with just even the possibility, and I'm sure you've had that, where in 6 months we know we're doing reshoots because of this budget movie. There's no way they're not doing reshoots. And so it's like, you don't want me to have brought my shirt to set that then, oh God forbid, he has to come back for reshoots. And now we have to trust him to bring his shirt back and that he didn't ruin it or give it away to Goodwill.
There are only 2 types that will ask for their costumes, ask to purchase, or like, hey man, I really like this jacket. Can I have it? It's very, very green people, very, very new people, or it is super A-listers that it's in their contract. They don't even have to ask for it. They get their whole closet. So don't be one of those. I'll give you a prime example of which one to be. Don't be this one. Because it's my job, specifically my job, at the end of the day to make sure that I get like you're wearing a necklace. I get the necklace back, your Henley, your pants, your Apple Watch. I'll make sure that goes to props just in case. Your bracelets, your shoes, the whole thing. I have to do like this mental checklist because I'm responsible for every single piece of everything. So when you have really new people who don't understand kind of the responsibilities of all of that. I've even had some people try to like take things without asking, just be like, dee, 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 dee. I'm like, where's your jacket? Oh, I put it in my backpack. I just figured I would take it home. Like, I'm done for the day. Like, I'm done. And I was like, cool. Now I have to get production involved and you have to be called. And if it becomes a thing, you'll get a reputation and people will literally book around you.
Wow. Don't
be that guy.
Yeah, don't be that person at all. It is so easy, I think, to not understand the scope of your job and my limited tiny interaction that I might have with you in the grand scheme of things, and how that can easily then, in an innocent way, I can totally disrespect your department. Sometimes it's egregious, right? Sometimes it is a willful act. Hopefully that is extreme exceptions to the rule, and more so it's like you said, it's more that green actor, that new actor who just doesn't know, who hasn't been on set enough. And that's really the point of this, is so that people who are in that position can maybe learn before they ever get there and know how to act accordingly. So let's now move past that call. We've sort of mixed in some of the rest of the journey, but let's go now to that wardrobe fitting, which in probably cases you would not prefer, can happen on your first shoot day, usually happens at least a day, if not weeks before your first day on set. What are some of those things that either make a green actor stand out or, again, can make your job easier when I'm showing up for my wardrobe fitting, that first time that I'm seeing you now in person?
Well, the first and foremost is come on time. Not an hour early, not 30 minutes late. Just come on time. 5 minutes early, fine. 10 minutes early, fine. But typically we schedule, or the supervisor schedules in a way that causes the least amount of stress for all involved in the fitting, the shoppers, the designer, your time. come clean and with undergarments on. Please, undergarments.
No commando?
No commando. Even if you are cast as a body double for different parts of the body, come still in the appropriate underwear and let us deal around that, if you will. I say that with pain in my heart because I have been scarred. But funny stories aside, yes, just clean. So, like, don't come straight from your hot yoga class and smell like feet, please. Because we're putting clothes on you that we don't own yet. Like, sometimes we're going to try 9 outfits on you, and it's not until they get approvals that we then purchase the one. We return everything else later. So don't remove tags. Hang your things up after a fitting. That goes for even on the day once you show up and you perform your task of acting. At the end of the day, hang your stuff up. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just a show of respect, because if I come into your room, and again, this is every letter of actor that has ever been an actor, and it looks like you imploded, exploded, and like I have a sock here and I've got underwear over there and a pair of pants I can't find because it's somehow behind the couch. It makes my job so much harder. So just be respectful. It's a nice sign of respect. And I've kind of heard from all people, oh, well, you don't hang it up because it's their job to hang it up. Sure, it is our job to hang things up if it's not. But if I'm wrapping 10 actors at the end of the day and all 10 actors hang their stuff up, I can wrap in half the time. Like, that means that I can then go home earlier and get some rest and then come back the next day, a little bit more. It all adds up. All of that those little courtesies add up. And it goes back. This is why I love theater actors. They're so respectful of the costumes because they only had one. That was it. You messed up that one costume. You had a department that were going to really be upset with you. So I do love that there is such respect, especially from theater, from that. And sometimes we get it in our actors as well, and it's just very refreshing. I hate to say that, but the explosion of clothes is becoming more and more, I think, par for the course. So yeah, just little things like that, hanging things up, coming appropriately garbed.
If I'm number 75 on the call sheet, coming in, whether or not I'm experienced or whether or not I'm a newbie, how compare that to maybe number 10 on the call sheet, not necessarily 1 and 2, because I imagine they would have a lot of input, or you would respect their input to the costume choices. But if I'm number, again, 75, somewhere down there versus number 10, what is that equation for costumes?
It depends on the designer. Some are a little bit more collaborative. Others have a very cemented idea of not just what your character is wearing or why your character is wearing what they're wearing, but they also have boards in their head that you have a palette that is your palette, right? So they are having to run your palette against every other person that's in that scene with you, the furniture you're sitting on, the wallpaper, the colors of everything. So they have so many equations in their brain that, not that it's clinical per se, but there is a bit of that kind of equation in the overallness that is your character. So if it's asked for, of course. But I've seen some designers get offended because there is so much other things going on up here that the input can, if asked for, of course, give. If you have an opinion, you might not. You can be like, you can dress me however you want. I'm here to say words artfully and make it my own, And yes, the lower the number, the more input, or if you're a producer, because there's so many fingers in the pie, per se. Everyone has an opinion. You're kind of juggling all of that, but still making artistic choices as a designer. It's hard. It's towing a line. And I think if you have any kind of self-awareness, you can feel out the people in the room, and you will know when, if you have a strong feeling on something or you dislike something, There might be a reason why it is that it is what it is, and they might have the time to explain why it is this way. But typically, it's their job to help visually create the character that you are making come alive. So sometimes it's a handshake. Sometimes you might hate something and you put it on and it works for that character. Just because you personally don't like it doesn't mean it won't work for your character that you were hired for. So that's something to keep in there too, in the little hamster as it's running. The choices sometimes are done in a way that helps you create your character, and there's a reason for it, and you might not even know it until you don the garb and you're like, oh, there he is. There's that guy. Okay. Mm-hmm. Cool.
This is quite honestly why I wanted to do these interviews, because as obvious as it is to hear you even just talk about the fact that whether it's that the fingers in the pie you talked about, that so many other considerations that have happened before this wardrobe fitting to arrive at this palette, to arrive at this rack of clothes. It's just such a good reminder. And I think from an actor standpoint, what it sort of boils down to is just make sure you're the type of person in that environment that you're there to be a team player with costumes. It is not an us against them, because you might already be feeling that against some of those other departments of like, everyone's making my job hard. Somebody just make a decision, please, or someone, come to a decision so that you can do your job. And the last thing you then need is the actor to be sort of trying to live above their station, if you will. And some people do get that false idea that they need to assert their confidence and their sort of their dominance. I'm the reverse. I've been at far too many wardrobe fittings where I've put on a very tight pair of pants and they say, how's that? I'm like, that's fine. And I'm not thinking about the 12 hours I'm going to spend in these.
Yes.
And eating lunch where I'll probably eat way too many carbs and get bloated, and then I'll be really uncomfortable after lunch. But I'm the passive personality who's going to default way too much to being that quote unquote team player. But I think the danger is also on that other side of the spectrum where someone is a little too vocal about what they think is not going to work for the character. When, like you said, there might be so many other considerations in mind as to why it is going to work for the character. I had a very unique experience that I've never had since. I think this was in 2017. I had two 2-hour wardrobe fittings. The costumes person who was fitting me, he taught me how to stand. Like, he taught me how to pose. Is that just a idiosyncrasy of that designer, or is that something that when you're going to take the photos that are going to be sent off, is it something that actors should even think about, that, like how they're standing in that moment?
And yes, and I find that it is more prevalent now, where I don't know, earlier, because again, I've been in this for a long time, there used to not be so many approvals, right? The designer used to be the true head of a department and be like, this is what I want them to wear. As we've gone along, it's more collaborative. Now producers want to know, the director, like, and depending on if it's film or TV, there is more opinions and yeses and nos and discussions, and I don't like this, and this is why I don't like this, or I love this, can we do more of this? Where it used to not be. So those photos are so important, and just how you hold yourself as a character, sitting like this with your head down, taking a photo versus, presence, shoulders back, confidence, know your angles. I'm sure everybody knows their angles mostly, or practice. It comes off 100% different. You can wear the exact same thing and be hunched over and look sad and not, be lit correctly, versus same outfit, shoulders back, looking confident, looking like a badass. It's going to come across to the person who is doing approvals totally different. So it's just like when you're doing an audition. If you read the same words in two different forms, one is going to maybe be what they're looking for a lot more than the other. So crossboard, same thing. Yes, how you present yourself. And that's why you will start to get a lot more direction, especially if you are a bad guy or you're supposed to be intimidating. You might get notes during just the fittings on like how to stand and, look mean and all, not like, hey, buddy, I'm here to murder a whole room of people with an AK-47, it is important. How you present yourself is 100% important. And it's important to our department too, because if it's not presented properly, we'll have to do it all over again. If they hate everything that we put in front of them, which happens, it's rare, but when it happens, we have to reshop you, and then we got to bring you back in, and then we've got to refit you, and then that's a whole department of people that have to then redo something, which is my one pet peeve. I hate redoing things. It drives me crazy. Just to kind of hit the mark. So yes, it is 100% important how you pose in an image, because everybody sees it now. It used to just be for your board. So I know, okay, this is what you're wearing in the scene. I can put it up with the other people who are in the scene, and I can go, okay, great. You're not all in the same color. You don't match the walls. Now it goes to 5 people who are not only my boss, but like their boss's boss, and they all have to see it. So yes, presenting yourself in the costume, in the hair, and the makeup, super important. It's not just a photo, I promise.
So to that effect, probably it might behoove an actor to, especially if they're an actor who's wearing makeup, to show up at that costume fitting, not necessarily in their character's makeup, but you know, if I'm going to be clean shaven for the role, if I've agreed to be clean shaven for the role, don't show up with a beard that I haven't shaved yet, because that can make those subtle, psychologically, it could be affecting whoever's going to be making that decision. They're distracted by this thing, whether it's the pose, whether it's my presentation. You know, I've got bedhead because I showed up in a ball cap, and you're like, can you take the cap off? And you're like, oh crap, I didn't even comb my hair this morning. And so you're not, and then I'm feeling self-conscious as the actor, and you're like, oh, ooh, what do we do about that? That's not my department. So I think it's just a good idea to, even though the costume fitting, when it's on a non-shoot day, can feel like a relaxed setting for the actor, to still put some thought into that, into how they show up and how they pose. So let's continue with set. I've arrived at set. Maybe I've been through the works with hair and makeup, maybe not. Anything that I need to, you already touched on sort of at the end of the day, make sure you hang up your costume and don't just explode it into your trailer. But anything at the beginning of that day that I need to watch out for. I mean, right away, I know if I'm in a suit, and if I know that they're not going to call me to set, they've told me you have a few hours, then there's no point in getting dressed fully. In fact, then I'm going to wrinkle up that suit that you're going to have to then probably iron or
pull off you and then
something.
Re-prep.
Yeah. So maybe speak to that, or anything else that comes up at that sort of beginning part of the day before I've been called to set.
Wear something comfortable, because as you said, it's the hurry up and wait. Sometimes you're in at 6 a.m. and they want to push you through hair and makeup, which is their prerogative. It's production. Your costume will always be in your room 9 times out of 10, unless there's a reason for it. They're doing alterations at the last minute, et cetera, et cetera. But typically, the second you open your door, your costume should be there completely. I will normally also greet you, or somebody from our department will greet you and be like, hey, so they want you to go in hair and makeup. So feel free to put on your base, anything that's like a pullover. Mm-hmm. You'll want to do that before hair and makeup, because that allows hair and makeup to do their job without ruining it, trying to put, a costume over your head after the fact. Sometimes you don't have the ability to do that because of just the nature of the costume. But 9 times out of 10, you can put on your pants, you can put on an undershirt or anything that was a pullover, and then you go about your merry way to hair and makeup. It's always good to have a hoodie. If not, we can sometimes provide that depending on the production. We'll give you something to keep you warm because it's 6 a.m. and it's cold and the coffee hasn't kicked in yet and catering isn't open and you're hungry. And so all of those factors is just anything you can do. Bring a book. Because as you know, it's a lot of hurry up and wait. So you'll go through hair and makeup, you'll come back. Don't immediately get into your costume unless it's a conversation you've had with costumes. Sometimes you'll need help to get into it. We'll come, and if it's a suit specifically, do you know how to tie a tie? Important. Would you like us to take your jacket to set? So it's one last thing that you have to worry about. And it's also the last thing to get crinkly. So your costumer will bring all that to set, and they'll do your tie for you if there's a specific knot that the designer wants and it's not something you know how to do as an actor, we should all at least know how to do 1 or 2 knots with a tie. It comes in handy in the rest of your life too. But so stay out of it until like I will come and get you, or production will tell you to come and get dressed. And then you know to get dressed because you are going to go see sound or things of that nature. So you're not living in it, unless there are times where you're playing a homeless guy. Feel free, get in the whole costume, roll around in the dirt. Don't really do that, but you know, live in it. Get to kind of feel it. We're not concerned at that point about keeping fine presses and things and stuff to that nature.
If I get called to a rehearsal on set, sometimes that base camp PA is like, I need you now. Don't worry about costume for the rehearsal. You're going to come back and finish getting touch-ups, and you'll have time to change. But from costume's perspective, would you prefer me to be in, you know, close to 100% of my costume for that rehearsal, or does it matter to you?
Typically, we'll send you to rehearsal kind of partially in costume, unless it's something specialty where you need it, like in the scene, you have to reach in and pick something up out of a coat pocket, or there is a reason to go 100% because the thing you're wearing makes you move differently. All of those things, like that deals with your performance. We trust you. We'll have a conversation about that beforehand, just so we can be like, hey, remember, this is happening in the scene, so maybe it's better if you wear the shoes that are your costume shoes so you can kind of feel how that action is in that thing. If it's putting something on, taking something off, gloves, the whole nine, go with it, because that's going to change your pacing as an actor, just kind of living in that skin. So it can be important. And if you feel as an actor you need to do that, and it's something that maybe we don't see initially, just be like, hey, man, I really feel like this will change the pace of things. Is it okay if I go in full costume? And then we know what to expect, and we'll definitely have a representative with you, just so if anything happens, say you take your jacket off and you throw it over a chair and somehow it ends up in coffee, we can kind of pivot from that point then, instead of like head on fire running around going vintage wool suit. Shit.
You're not speaking from experience.
No, ever. It's my first day. But all of those things, again, we're all kind of in the same vehicle to produce this art piece, if you will. And there are reasons for everything. And you might have a reason in your head that I might not see because I'm not an actor. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it would make sense that you wear your whole outfit because this is a scene where you're getting dressed, or a scene that you're getting undressed, or you're jumping over something. And what you're wearing as a human is going to react differently than, you know, a vintage suit if you're kipping over something, or, you know, so that it is important. And we want you to be successful. Like, we're not going to be like, don't mess up our clothes. I would rather you mess it up and we can fix it and you get the performance you need that's important to you as an actor, than be like, don't, my precious, you can't have it. We don't care. Not really.
Yeah, I think an actor should sort of have that forethought of whatever the physicality of the scene is. If there isn't, if it's a diner scene, we're not moving. I don't walk into the scene. I don't leave the scene. There's not a lot of considerations they're going to have to worry about in terms of how wardrobe's going to affect. But I would certainly agree that, for instance, if you know you're doing a lot of walking in the scene and you're not really sure yet what set's going to look like, for the very least wear the shoes, because that might become an issue for sound. And they would love to. Are those your shoes? Those are very loud. Okay, we're going to have to pad those shoes. We're going to have to figure out a solution for how noisy those shoes are. That when all things are equal, when it isn't like hurry up, no, just come as you are with your coffee in hand and your burrito. Your director's yelling at me. We just need a rehearsal right now, because maybe an ornery celebrity finally came out of their trailer, and so they just need to get everybody to set. When you have that moment to kind of think about how you want to do the rehearsal, just to make those smart choices that seem to make the most sense. So now, anything else, either when we're getting to last looks, picture is up, we're getting ready to actually start shooting, or anything between takes that an actor can do or should be aware of? Because my experience, I'll just sort of preface this way, on a very nice set, every department is so deferential. They're trying not to invade space. They're trying not to bother you. They're trying to just do the bare minimum. They never want to let the actor know that they're doing something wrong. So I think that's why sometimes actors don't know what we could proactively do to make your job easier. So is there anything that happens during the actual shooting process that you'd like to talk about?
With last looks specifically, and we're human, unless I am a personal where I have you to worry about. Like, you are my only vehicle. God, those are great. Because my 2 brain cells, it's so much easier. We typically are responsible for up to 10 actors each, right? One me, 10 actors who have their own agendas, their own lines to remember. Anything that, and I will come to an actor sometimes when I'm prepping you, I'll be like, look, I put makeup tape on your collar. Do not let me forget to pull off the makeup tape before you go to camera. I'm saying this so I'm also, my 2 brain cells are going, yes, remember, makeup tape, last looks. I will sometimes forget little things, so I will kind of get the actor in on it too, because you don't want to go to camera with makeup tape on you, because you'll have to potentially reshoot that. We're all wasting everybody's time. So there are little things that if you notice, dude, don't. Hey, I had a pocket square. Do you know where my pocket square is? Maybe say it a little earlier, but then I can go, oh, pocket square. Okay, it's on the rack. I'll be right back. And I'll go get that. And you literally just, were my hero because you noticed something that I overlooked or somebody else started and didn't finish. So we're all on the same team, really. And as long as you're not like, hey, dumbass, you forgot my X, Y, and Z, we're going to be like, oh, man, thank you for that. You just saved my life. Or we don't have to reshoot this. Perfect. Or fix it in post. Hey, VFX, how do you feel about VFX pocket squares? Or if your coat isn't in the same spot that it should be in camera, say something. Move the coat. We're not going to be like, oh, sir, you touched my things. Because again, in the end, we're all human and we're doing 1,200 things at once. You're as an actor trying to remember your lines and your placement and where you're supposed to say stuff and where you pick stuff up and put it down. I'm wrangling 10 actors who are also doing that same thing. And I've got people yelling in my ear and I'm putting out a fire. So we're all in the same team. So if you see something, say something.
There have been times where I've been literally the only principal actor in the scene. It's a phone call. It's whatever, so that you're going to get more personal attention because nobody has to worry about anybody else. You're the only person. And you will feel a little bit more of that star treatment because there isn't the 12 things dividing each department's attention. And so I think there's a discernment for the actor to realize that when there are 3 characters in the scene, or it is a celebrity that you're in the scene opposite of, plus there's 25 extras behind you, plus other considerations, to not be afraid to speak up. Like you said, see something, say something. You've got an ornery collar that needs to be reset after every take, and you realize no one reset it this time, and it's not something you can easily, fix on your own, or it is, and so you can sort of check that on your own between takes. Just more eyeballs, less, because I think some actors can be sort of intoxicated by feeling pampered. Some people are like a little freaked out by it, by all the hands touching. Some people think of it more like a spa day, and that can be a dangerous mentality of like, yes, I'm waiting for last looks. Wait, I'm not getting them? Oh, okay, because I'm still the same. Okay, and I think that side of the spectrum can be a little dangerous if you're not careful, because then you're expecting someone else who has 12 other actors or other things to think about. They might not come by to check you every time, or if they know that they have to because you're not doing it yourself, that can just start to wear on those resources. Like this guy, he thinks that he's here to be pampered, and I got to go fix his collar again. I mean, I know it makes my day, if it's only one day on set, it makes it go so much better when I can sort of do a little bit to meet you in the middle. Because not because I'm going to get called back for that behavior. Suddenly, let's bring that guy back. He was so nice to everybody.
It happens.
It does happen.
It 100% happens.
And it's just good, mojo, right? It's just good to put that out there, because then people do remember you. And who knows, the person that you are helping today, the power, the voice they'll have in a future job, to either say, I don't want to work with that person. I can go into the reasons why, but if you're asking me, let's not hire him, or not, let's not hire that person. So I think it just goes a long way to try to meet every department somewhere in the middle. It just also shows that you're interested, that I actually respect and understand why your job is important, why it is contributing to the whole. Because I want everyone in your department to want to have me back. Anything else that I need to either do in my trailer or specifically find someone from your department?
You are our first line of defense when it comes to repairs. So any customer worth their salt is going to wrap your room and kind of make sure that everything's there. But sometimes buttons pop off, and we're wrapping 200 people. It happens. And if you've noticed something has come awry or off, especially like a button that maybe you wouldn't catch, you're our savior, even if you're like, here is said button, because then I don't have to find something that looks like it. Yes, again, it comes down to, if you see something, say something, because there is nothing worse, and it's happened to me several times, where I will not wrap the room, but I'm responsible for prepping it in the next morning. So I'll be prepping something, and the entire back seam, this has happened, you know who you are, the entire back seam of a pair of specialty pants was ripped out. Like, I don't know how we missed it, but I was prepping the next day, and it looked like somebody had passed a fart to end all humanity, and now it's my problem. So I'm very fortunate that I know how to sew, because then I can just fix the problem myself. But there are plenty in my position that don't know how to machine sew, and you would be a cartoon at that moment going, eep, because it's 5:30 in the morning and the sewing crew doesn't come in until 9, because that's just a standard workroom. Just if something is gone awry during the performance of the day, just mention it. Even if we notice it, I'd rather have somebody tell me something twice than have an OS moment, in the wee hours of the morning, because it fell through the cracks or we didn't notice. So help us. Help us help you, because otherwise you're not going to get your costume on time, and you're not going to have your process as an actor will be interrupted. God forbid, we're throwing things on you as you were walking to set. That's going to mess up your prep. So help us help you. We're all here to do the same job, and we're all human. So sometimes we missed things, but never be afraid to be like, hey, in an action, I did X, Y, and Z. Because that gives us 12 hours to fix a problem instead of 30 minutes.
I know that you have a lot of experience with super suits and specialty costumes in that regard. And so is there anything else in that realm of I'm playing a superhero, or I've got something just that has been fabricated from scratch?
With super suits specifically, or period clothing, wear your base layers. Just wear them. They're provided for a reason, because sometimes we're not able to classically wash something. So those base layers are the things that separate your body from the suit that at best, at the end of the night, we turn inside out, we spray with vodka and put in front of a fan. Like, that is how we disinfect your suit. So that base layer we can wash. So it's just... It may be hot. I get it. You might feel that little base layer adds a little bit more weight, and that makes you self-conscious. But I promise they exist for a reason. Like, we never do anything to torture anyone on purpose. Unless we don't like... No, I'm just kidding. So everything's there for a reason. And specifically things that we can't traditionally launder, wear your base layers. You'll thank us after 2 weeks of wearing the same garment. And, you're not wearing your base layer, and you're like, oh, is that me? It's you. And we're trying as hard as we can, but we can't fight biology.
If I'm a sweater, and not like a sweater, but if I sweat quickly, and like for me, armpits are the first to go. I won't sweat up here. I won't even perspire until long after the pits have started to get wet. Is that something that you would love to know at the fitting, or even over the phone call, or where in the process should I offer that information?
If you know that you're kind of a kvetzer, definitely during the phone call, because that already puts it in my brain that I'm going to need at least 2 things for you. One, pit pads, because that's just a nice little barrier between you and the costume. And 2, that I'm going to need multiples, maybe 4 shirts, undershirts. So even though your costume itself doesn't require multiples, you as a human, to make sure that you look as fresh as you're meant to look, we might change your shirt 4 times a day. That lets us know and that lets us prepare. So it's not embarrassing. We don't care. That's just good information for us to know. So yeah, share, man. And then we can make sure that you're comfortable. Because nobody wants to be on camera unless it's meant to look like a sweaty mess. A sweaty mess.
Any final thoughts? What's your favorite? How about this? You don't have to necessarily name the project unless you want to, but like, what's been one of your favorite projects to work on?
Any project I have that's not just a straight shopped project is my favorite. But obviously doing Doom Patrol for 4 years was, it was my kind of indoctrination into like full on whole department, being responsible for humans in super suits and whole teams of people. How am I adulty enough? But that for me was swim, kid. And I think I'm still doing the backstroke, so.
And I'll end with giving you a compliment, which was, were you in costumes for Halt and Catch Fire? Okay, so it might have been Halt and Catch Fire. I was in a costume fitting, and I don't even think it was something I was trying on, but your name came up amongst the team that was there in the room, and they were just gushing over you, over like, have you seen what she can do with, I think it was like a leather jacket that you either restored or altered or whatever it was. It was something, because that was a period show. It was in the 80s. And it was just really cool for me to sort of be that fly on the wall while they weren't including me in the conversation, but just to hear them talking about my friend. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool that, to listen to this unsolicited comment being given. It's so much easier, especially in our industry where there's so many departments that sometimes the private conversations are, about the other department, or they're not compliments that are being shared. So it was really nice to be privy to that, to hear my friend being sort of lifted up so much for her talents. And to me, it's just a testament to your abilities and your work ethic. And so it's why I was so happy to have you here today.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here with not only one of my friends, but every time I see your name on a call sheet, makes me happy. Makes me happy.
Well, here's to being on the next call sheet together. Thank you so much, Miracle.
Thanks, man.
I could have gushed for another 20 minutes about how awesome Miracle is. Every time I book a new gig, the first thing I do is check that call sheet to see if Miracle is working the costumes department. And when she is, I'm so thrilled because I know she's going to take care of me. I hope all of you get to work with her one day soon. But until then, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on set.